Hello everyone, it's Elaine. Thank you for joining me back on my YouTube channel. Today I've got this card featuring MFT's Frightfully Sweet stamp set and an alcohol inked background. I'm excited to be using my alcohol inks at the moment, so if you'd like to see how I created this card, then just keep watching. So I've taken some Yupo paper from Ranger and I'm putting that onto a glass. This is a glass cutting board that I've got that I don't use anymore, and I've taken one of my ink blending tools with some felt, the alcohol ink felt, and I'm putting some of my alcohol inks all over that pad. I shall list the colours I've used on the screen and also in the description box below. And then I apply some alcohol blending solution over the top of those inks and just swipe them all over the Yupo paper. Excuse my blue gloves, I wasn't really too sure how badly inked my fingers were going to get, so I thought it best to use some gloves. So I personally find that when I apply the alcohol blending solution directly from the bottle, my ink disperses, it's too much onto the paper, so I personally prefer a finer spritz. So I get an old paintbrush and then just tap some of that alcohol blending solution onto the paper, and I like those finer splatters personally. And I am really new to alcohol ink, so this is only my second time using them, so I'm really just playing about and just having a go and seeing what I like, seeing what works for me and seeing what effects I can get. So these are really fine little splatters, but as you can see, I think it works out quite well. I just go directly onto the paper with that brush just to kind of get a variation in splatters and effects on my paper. I did purposely choose some pinks and purples because I'm going to be using this on a Halloween card. So I just keep going back in with alcohol blending solution, alcohol inks, just trying to see what effects I can get. I didn't want to make it too light because I do want this to be more purple than pink. And I'm kind of getting to where I want the background to be. Don't mess about with it too much more. I use my heat tool just to dry little patches off, and then I come in with this gold or rose gold foil. I'll link the one that I've used below, and I saw Kelly Latavola do this in a video some time ago now. I will try and find it and link it for you. Now moving on to the card, I am using this Simon Says Stamp Far Away collage die, and I'm using just a piece of black cardstock, and I run that through my Big Shot, and I really like the effect that I create with this die. Really gentle to take that off carefully. It did tear my paper, so I have to be creative in how I cover that up at the end. And then I just pop that over the alcohol ink background and have a play about and see which part of the background I prefer, and just mark that off on my paper. And apologies, I'm out of frame a little bit here. I do realise in a minute, but then I just use that die to help me cut out that panel so that I cut it to the right size. I take my ATG gun and I apply some adhesive to the back part of that cardstock, and then pop my alcohol inked background onto that cardstock. And there's my background. I thought it looked pretty cool. A happy accident. That little bit of gold foil looks like lightning coming down. So I was really pleased about that because that did look quite fun. I'm applying some more of my ATG gun and I'm just popping that onto a piece of pale purple cardstock. I've got a very small border around the edge. Next I apply some more of my ATG gun to the back of that purple card and adhere everything down onto a standard A2 sized piece of card. And now I'm going to be moving on to my colouring and stamping. So I'm using some Copic friendly cardstock and Memento Tuxedo black ink in my Misti, and I stamp those out. I just adhere that down to a piece of tape just so it doesn't move around too much, and I begin colouring in my images. I've sped this up quite a lot. I think I've sped it up 5 times. I'm using some slightly different colours to my previous videos. I'm going to link the colours, or going to put the colours on the screen, but I'll also pop all the colours down in the description box below if it moves too fast for you or you didn't catch them. These little critters are adorable. I can't stop using them in cards. I hope you're not getting bored of them. But seeing as I'm only going to be bringing them out once a year, I do want to make the most of using them. So I use some slightly different colours for my pumpkin baskets this time. I bring in a brown, just to deepen them up a little bit. I'm using some dark sea markers for the hat and the wings on my bunny. And this time I do also colour in the hedgehog, which I've not done in previous videos. I had room for him on this one and he fitted perfectly because he's nice and small on this card. So back to the bunny, I'm using some warm grey markers for my bunny. And then I move on to some sort of pale C markers for my hedgehog's bandages and some E40s for my actual hedgehog. Not that you see that much of him. And then I couldn't find my E44, so I went in with did the tip to tip method, but I did find my E44 in the end, so I do use it on his body. But as I said, you can't see too much of him. My raccoon is some dark warm greys in the darker areas, and I use the lighter warm greys for the rest of his body and his tummy. And for the candy corns, I use some yellow markers, some white R markers for the middle section, and just a touch of light C markers for the little tips. I'm moving on to my fox. I used some of my E markers, some orangey E markers for most of his body. Again, using my tip to tip method, or my tip to tip method, but the tip to tip method to colour in my fox. Some lighter E's for his tummy and his tail and the rest of his face. I use some RVs for the ears and the cheeks, and E markers, E30 markers for my squirrel. I really struggled to colour the squirrel. I couldn't get the blending right. It worked out in the end, but it took me quite a long time going backwards and forwards colouring my squirrel. I pop on the dies, run it through my Big Shot, and start adhering my critters to my scene. I'm using some Nuvo liquid adhesive to secure them down. Add in my little hedgehog because he's the perfect height for that middle part of the card. Trying to get them evenly spaced if I can. And then I did colour the sweets and obviously the candy corn, so I apply some more glue to the backs of those sweets and just pop them down by their feet. Take my Signo white gel pen, add some highlights to little parts of the animals and their outfits, a black glaze pen for the eyes, and then I move on to my sentiment. I wished I'd have put my sentiment on the black cardstock before I'd started adhering it all to the card base, but I take some VersaFine Onyx black ink with an embossing body first, clear heat set that with the clear embossing powder, and then I take a MFT die and cut out my sentiment, and then I put it all back together, securing it with some tape, and then take the Wilted Violet Oxide ink. I just find it easier to ink up small pieces of cardstock when they're secured to another piece of cardstock. I put some ATG all over the back of that sentiment, and I've already done that sentiment, but it just didn't, in real life, it didn't really look that good. So I changed it up, and then I took these bats from my Newton's Nook Halloween Trio die set. I love these bats, they're a perfect size. So I cut them out of some black glitter card, which I had in my stash. It's nothing special. It's not really card, it's more like paper, so they're quite flimsy. But I put a few blobs of glue onto the card front. I'm trying to cover up the bit where the cardstock got ripped at the beginning. Again, using my Nuvo liquid adhesive to secure them to my card. And there my card is finished. I do add some glossy accents. It's not quite finished. Just to a couple of parts of the bow ties. And that's my card finished for today. I hope you enjoyed that. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'm having a giveaway coming very soon, so please check back, hit the notification bell so you don't miss that video, hopefully going out next week, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!